Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where as always, we learn through the misfortunes of others. I am your host, Uncivil Law, and we are here to discuss the Murdaugh trial, which has come to an end, with sentencing this morning by the judge and a jury returning its verdict yesterday. Guilty in the murder of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh with the firearms enhancement, and the judge, unsurprisingly, gives consecutive, that is, back-to-back, life sentences without the possibility of parole for the two murders. So the case comes to a somewhat dramatic and also somewhat unexpectedly quick end in some ways, because this case went on for 6 weeks. Remember, this case was supposed to be over February 10th. Does anyone remember that? Is it February 10th yet? Oh, no, it's a little bit past. It's a little bit past that. We've redefined February 10th, but that's okay. We've redefined so many things in this trial. For example, when the state said we have 4 or 5 witnesses, and it was 7. So maybe it really is February 10th. Maybe it's been February 10th this entire time. Who knows? In any event, the jury, after hearing this weeks and weeks of testimony, only had 3 hours of deliberation. And apparently, according to an interview conducted by one of the jurors, they came to a consensus fairly quickly, even as there was some initial dissent. So one of the jurors has already spoken to the media and said the initial vote was 9 guilty, 1 unsure, and 2 not guilty. But apparently, within a space of 45 minutes, the jurors were able to convince them of guilt, and then the rest is just basically the paperwork, and then returning a verdict of guilty. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, in the speed of it. I think that there's technical sufficiency. The only case in recent memory where I thought there was not technical sufficiency was Kim Potter, and she didn't appeal for whatever her reasons were. Technical sufficiency is pretty difficult to screw up. You don't see a lot of cases where you're like, oh, there's not technical sufficiency. The state put together a circumstantial case. It's very circumstantial in my view. The state in closing said the circumstantial so good it's like it's direct, which no, it's not. And also, at least in my mind, the circumstantial isn't that good. There's a lot of ambiguities. So in terms of what a jury can do, the jury is the finder of fact. The jury can believe or disbelieve any witness in whole or in part, and any sort of combination that makes any sense at all. So there is an idea where a jury kind of goes off the rails, and you have something where where you can do like against the manifest weight of the evidence, where something is so lopsided that how did this jury disregard so much stuff that goes one way and pick on this little thing that goes the other way? So you do have this concept in law. Of course, this isn't this kind of case. This isn't that kind of case. This isn't a manifest weight kind of case. It's not like there's a manifest weight. There are problems in the state's case, but you could reasonably ignore those problems, or you could reasonably conclude that those things should be ignored. You could, for example, talking about the grand jury for just one example, you could conclude that the SLED officer flat out lied to the grand jury. He committed perjury to the grand jury, and also conclude it doesn't matter in the end, right? The fact that he lied, assuming that you conclude it's a lie because there's ambiguity there, but assuming you conclude it's a lie, that the person said to the grand jury, well, I found 4 shotguns that were loaded with both buckshot and birdshot, which is totally not true. You didn't find that. That was a mistake at best. But assuming you conclude that's a flat out lie, and he out and out lied to the grand jury and is out and out lying to you now, that SLED officer being a liar, of course, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to disregard even everything that SLED officer says. Anything more than any other person who testifies, and you're like, oh, they're lying about that. You can obviously conclude that a liar in one is a liar in everything, but you don't have to conclude that. You can conclude that they're lying about some things and not lying about other things. And you can also conclude that those lies are somewhat immaterial in the end, in sort of what you're trying to assess. So those are some examples of things we've seen. I think for me personally, I still think I'm going into that verdict, going to that jury room not guilty. Now, I don't know whether or not I could be convinced out of that position. or not. I've definitely, there have been cases where I felt more solid about and felt that I couldn't be taken off a position. I'm not sure I necessarily feel that way. So my vote is not guilty, but I don't know that I necessarily would stick to that through and through. I try to look at things and assess, and maybe there is, my fellow jurors, as they are contemplating things and putting things together, maybe they will put things together in a way that I haven't thought of. It's one of the benefits of the jury system is that we have 12 of us to think, and we exchange in our mutual dialogue, and we literally get to I literally get to listen to you think, and then based on that, I think, and we work through it together. But I think that there are problems in the case. I think that the timeline is really tight. I don't really think that he can do all the things that the state thinks he does in the time frames that he says he does it. The biggest thing that convicts Murdaugh in the end is probably just that there's no really good alternative hypotheses that really make sense. Because I think the best I think it is definitely more probable that the guns that were used to kill Maggie and Paul were Murdaugh's guns. The guns that are missing, right? Those guns. I think that the evidence that's available is strongly suggestive that it was their 12 gauge and their 300 blackout. And if you've reached that conclusion, then alternative suspects and alternative hypotheses become a little bit harder. Because what is this scenario, right? If there are people coming to the murder, people coming to the farm for the purpose of committing murders, then presumably they're going to bring their own weapons. I've expressed this point before. It's like, even if they know that as a matter of fairly routine practice, this family has a tendency to keep firearms just lying out and about, just everywhere. They're firearm here, firearm there, everywhere firearm. You can't trip over a tree without getting a couple firearms, falling from the bushes, in my mixed metaphor over here. But even if you somehow knew that, you wouldn't depend on that, one would think, if you're going there for the purposes of committing the murder. Because maybe today's the day where they decide to clean up the firearms and practice safe habits, right? You're not going to, and even if their guns are there, they might not be loaded and they might not be operative. You're not going to depend on that. So it doesn't seem quite, yeah. So the scenario would have to be, presumably, that they are near the farm, lying in wait, with the idea that perhaps they know that Alex Murdaugh is going to leave the farm to go visit his mom because his father's in the hospital, which isn't completely absurd. His father being sick and in the hospital, I'm sure, would become reasonably available information to someone paying attention. And so what? They're lying in wait just for him to leave so that they can go up there and catch Paul or Maggie by themselves, or whatever the scenario is. So the biggest problem that convicts Alex in the end is just that it doesn't really, alternative suspects don't really quite work. Elena says, go to Alex for advice on getting the job done, leaving no DNA, no blood on your white t-shirt, all in circa 18 minutes. Yeah, there are problems. There are problems. So I think that you could definitely work through it, and you could get guilty, but I'm a little bit concerned how fast it was, because I don't even think the Darrell Brooks jury was this fast. I have to go double check, but that was the case where you'd expect a really fast guilty verdict, right? Normally, when you come back really, really fast, it's usually favorable to the defense, unless, of course, it's just so overwhelmingly clear, right? Because the idea being, if you're going to find him guilty, you're going to have to work through it, unless guilt is just readily obvious. Because, for example, Darrell Brooks, with grounds and the tape and all the things that they saw, right? I could see a jury going back and being like, what do we need to review? He obviously is guilty. So, how much discussion and thought do we need to put into this? Not much. So normally it's not guilty, or it's a rock solid guilt. And I don't think whatever can be said about the Alex Murdaugh case we're into that territory about the rock solid guilt. Like, it is just stone cold, rock solid. I don't think we're quite in that territory. So I have some serious questions about the jury coming back as fast as they did, and two no votes and one not sure vote, apparently becoming so convinced in 45 minutes that they're like, yeah, okay, yeah. Um, Even the judge knows you're going to appeal. Can they hold it against you if you don't speak at sentencing? Well, it depends what you mean by hold it against you, I suppose, in some sense. No, not strictly speaking, no, but you know, they don't have to, because I mean, there was no chance in this world that he was going to get anything other than what the judge gave down. I mean, it was a mortal lock guarantee that it was going to be 2 consecutive life sentences back to back. Of course it is. So, yeah. The judge's sentencing remarks were at times a little bit weird. So there's some things going on there. It also seems like there might be some personal or at least professional animus, which, to be fair, I understand at least the professional animus, because if I were your judge and you were a member of the bar and I found out that you had done all these horrible, horrible things, the fact that you've betrayed the profession on top of everything else would piss me off a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Right? It's like you have betrayed the profession on top of betraying your family. So, like, you might have been a murderer, but then you had to take that one extra step and show disrespect to the bar. I understand this impulse, to be honest. So, yeah. Did you hear what the judge said during sentencing? This judge knows he's innocent. He may be a liar, he may be a thief, but he's not a killer. Judge says, "Love your son very much." I heard the judge's remarks. There were times where the judge's remarks seemed to stray a little bit and be a little bit unclear or confusing. But yeah, it's like you might not have been the one that did this. It might have been the monster that you became instead. It's like that was a really interesting little linguistic phrase. Why do I think there are no victim impact statements? Um, I don't know. I couldn't really say. I suppose you'd have to ask the victims themselves, to be honest. Maybe they just felt like there was nothing left to say, which I understand that too. I want nothing more to do with you, even to come here and offer my words. I just don't. I can't even be bothered at this point. I want so little to do with you. I understand that impulse. I think I understand a person who wants to, confront the person and say their piece, and I understand a person who doesn't want to do that. People reacted to things in different ways. So yeah, master manipulator. Oh, he's definitely that, for sure. Yeah, I definitely see that for sure. There's a defense presser coming up. Excellent. Well, if that happens while I'm on the air, maybe we can watch it together. They don't think he did it. Maybe they don't. I don't know about that either. Maybe that's true. No, the verdict is over. Yeah, the verdict is guilty, and the sentencing already happened this morning. Back to back life sentences. So, yeah, jury watch is over. The case is over. The appeal begins. The best grounds of appeal are the financial testimony just being so wide. It is difficult to squeeze all that into a reasonable view of motive, particularly because the judge made some really weird statements from the bench and sort of errors of law. Whether it's substantially more prejudicial than probative is for the jury to decide. No, it's not. No, that's you. So that's an error of law. And so you've got a clear error of law and abuse of discretion issues on top of it for letting in all the things. Like, even if you think that somehow the financial house of cards coming down was the motive, which seems questionable. But even if you think that, how you're going back 10 years as part of that doesn't make any sense. He's waiving appeal. I doubt that very much. I doubt that very, very much. Yeah, this was not a death penalty case. The state didn't charge death penalty, so that was not an option. Yeah, it might not have been you. That was a bit of a weird moment, the way the judge phrased that thing. Uh, Let me see what's going on here with this defense press or whatever. Okay, defense press conference soon. Yeah, we'll just stay on. We'll stay on and try to cover this. Answer some questions. Can I believe O.J. Simpson waited in the trial? I did not have that on my bingo card. That is definitely a thing. I did not have it on my bingo card that they would comment, or that he would comment. $5 more, take 5 shots of water. Thank you. Yeah, I've had plenty of water in the last day. And so, yeah, but thank you. Some people are speculating that Judge's son passing away made him more biased. I would think it would impact him for sure, one way or another. Not sure how it would impact him, but I think it would impact him. I'm surprised so many people think he didn't do it. I don't know how many people think he didn't do it. I think there's a lot of people in the YouTube contingent who think the state's case is weak and think that the state has not proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, which isn't quite the same thing as believing that he didn't do it. There, that's at least my assessment of things. Did he do it? Well, at least in my mind, the state didn't really prove it beyond a reasonable doubt for reasons we've talked about. So, I'm not supposed to figure out whether or not he did it in some sense. I'm supposed to figure out whether or not the state has proven it. And so that's sort of my assessment of things. Yeah, clean my fingernails. I know. I just saw them. If AM ends his life, convinces others to do it in prison, would they get the $11 million life insurance? I don't think that the life insurance is still a valid policy. I don't think that he still has life insurance at this point. Jury fatigue could have been an issue. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Could the jury say guilty and let the appeal process overturn the conviction? I mean, you wouldn't bank on that as a jury. You'd be foolish to bank on that as a jury. I mean, appeals are for losers. While I think there are some really interesting grounds on appeal, and I certainly would feel better about writing this appeal than many, I'd have more hope in this appeal than many. You're not going to bank on it. Did I watch the prosecution's victory lap last night? A little bit, yes. They made their minds up before closing? Probably. $600. What's 600? Oh, 600 people watching. That's nice. Thank you to 600 people watching. That's very cool. Your continuing support of this channel is nice. Incidentally, by the way, if you're tired of the Murdaugh stuff, I released one of my videos earlier today in my edited videos that I was doing recently. So I just released an edited video dealing with a recent U.S. Supreme Court case on tax issues. With tax season coming up, seemed like a good thing to do. So this guy is living overseas and he has bank accounts, and he apparently screws up the paperwork in filing regarding those bank accounts in the US. He's a US citizen and he screws up the reports regarding the bank accounts. And so the government fines him $2.7 million for his mistakes in his taxes. $2.7 million penalty. And the US Supreme Court just said, how about $50,000 instead of $2.7 million? So that was an interesting case. So I released a video on that if you want to check that out earlier today. So that'd be good. I do not believe the evidence shows Alex committed this crime beyond reasonable doubt. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this issue, to be honest. The defense closing was weak, left something to be desired. There were definitely some lost opportunities in the defense's closing. They really should have hit every single time the prosecution or the prosecution's witnesses said something was reasonable and just brought it out as a demonstrative. That would have been really good to do. I'm torn how I feel about Valo Daybell not being on video. Well, Valo Daybell is now two separate trials. So I don't know whether or not it will continue to not be televised. Maybe one of them will be, but now Valo Daybell are two different trials. So, okay. Do I think he has successful grounds to appeal? I think the grounds of appeal here are better than many cases. I think that the scope of the financial stuff that was brought in is problematic under the relevant rules. I believe he did it and was proved beyond reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt has to believe reasonable. Fair enough. I respect your opinion. When's the Idaho case? I don't know. I think someone said April. I think Laurie is in April, but I'm not so sure about that, to be honest. Thank you, Greg, for the gift memberships as always. Really do appreciate everyone who helps to support the channel. We're just waiting for the defense presser to start here and see what they have to say about this thing. So hopefully that will start relatively soon. June 26th. Was it good to separate Daybell and Valo? I think it was required. I think it was required long ago. Don't do any drinking challenges. If it brings in revenue for the channel, got to make the channel work financially. So, if you don't want me to do drinking challenges anymore, then replace the funding, I suppose, and then I won't have to. What's the secondary Scottish case between Gonzalez versus Google? That'd be the Twitter case, and we do need to do a reaction to that at some point. We might do that later this afternoon. I think it's like a 3-hour argument too, so I'd want to do it relatively early in the day. $4.99 from Matt, a little dollar from Gatorade and ibuprofen. To be fair, you're doing much better than I would. Valo? Yeah, if Valo gets televised, I'll for sure do it. If not, then if I can get someone to sponsor me to go and attend in person, I might. I reached out to Crime Talk with Scott Reich. Sent him an email the other day, be like, hey, Scott, do you want to sponsor me to go up there? If you were the Lord to perform the appeal for Alex, what would be your strategy? Well, I'm going to go through the transcript and find every error and start documenting them and go from there. What software am I using to invite guests? I'm using Melon app. It's called Melon, is what I use. A lot of people use StreamYard, but I've been using Melon. It's run by Streamlabs. Why did AM say I never hurt them instead of I never kill them? I don't know. How am I doing? I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. You love me when I huff? How do I like Texas? Texas is fine. It's a nice state, but I'm willing to relocate for love. Is Melon better than StreamYard? It allows for these pop-ups that you get on screen, which is nice. So that's one of the reasons that I use Melon, is that I can get these pop-up alerts embedded in the video. And so that helps to show things when they pop on screen. So it gives an additional little reward for people who contribute to the channel and such. So they get some immediate feedback. The trial's hard when they can't find the body. Makes it difficult. You should do a game show for love. Maybe I should. Is there any potential issue with the judge's prior relationship with Murdaugh? No, not in particular. Unless they made a motion to recuse, and that I'm unaware of, but the defense didn't make a motion to recuse, then no. Thanks for covering the press conference. Sure. See what the defense has to say. My quest for love remains ever present. It totally sucks. Just waiting for the press conference to start, also responding to your chats as I see them pop up. How am I feeling? I'm feeling fine. Did you find out Goth Girl's last name? Yes. Her name is Savannah, and that's G something. I try to add her as a contact on LinkedIn. So I'll let you know if she accepts my invitation to be a contact on LinkedIn. But yeah, her name is Savannah Goethe, I think it is. Goete, something like that. Mm. Yeah, it's German. Yeah, so is my name. So we can have German names together. It came of the South Carolina was Supreme Court student loan case. They had oral argument for it yesterday or the day before. They just had oral argument. So we'll be covering that again. We'll be covering that soon, where the Supreme Court did the oral arguments on the student loan case thing. Love isn't what it's all cracked up to be, and when God believes you're ready, the perfect Melania Trump will fall right into your lap. Stay on Bumble and stay positive. Okay. I'm 42. I'm feeling a little old. Yeah, the verdict is guilty. Sentencing was this morning. Back to back life sentences. So, verdict is in. Verdict is guilty. When's my birthday? January. How long were deliberations? 3 hours. How's the exercise regimen going? It's not been going that great with the Murdaugh trial. It's been difficult to get my exercise on to the same degree I would want to with the live streaming and things like that. So it's not been going as good as I wanted to, but I'm still having some impacts because in Vegas I had to walk for like a mile and a half and to get to the venue with Nick, and I was able to do that. So I'm making progress, and that's encouraging. How does guilt of financial crimes make you serve a sentence for murder? Yeah, I feel that. It'll be 60 in 2 weeks. Just trust yourself. Love the lighting. It brings out my eyes with the shirt. Thank you. Fence was too weak. Closing needed some help. The state's closing also needed help, to be honest. Well, maybe they were both sides were tired. What are we talking about? We're just talking about the Alex Murdaugh case and just waiting for the defense's presser to start. Cater was right. Yeah. It does get a little bit hard, for me because I need to find a woman young enough so that we have time to have a family together. So I figure, realistically, she can't be older than 35 now because by the time we get through dating, get married, start having kids, stop having kids, time is a factor. So someone in prison still owe taxes? Sure. They have income. What will the appeal look like? I'd imagine the appeal will be primarily based on issues such as the financials coming in. It was overly broad. Is a violation of the Sixth Amendment even mentioned by prosecutions in rebuttal of proof they didn't cooperate? No, because they're talking about when he was talking to the cops, he wasn't cooperating in those conversations. That's fair commentary. The judge gave the state 2 extra weeks and massive latitude to turn murder into a preponderance of evidence case. I feel that. What can we do as a society to lower the odds of this type of judicial abuse happening? I don't know. What I consider adoption is not what I'm primarily interested in. I'd like to have my own children, if that's okay with you. After watching Netflix documentary, it seems the family jumped over hurdles and went to lengths to get Paul out of trouble, and then Alex turns around and kills Paul. Yeah, I don't know about that. Your husband and you met at 35 and popped out 3 kids right away? Yeah, it can be done. Certainly can be done. It's just the time pressures are real. I mean, the time is a factor here. Only dated 6 months? Fair enough. Yes, this would go to the South Carolina Supreme Court. These are state level issues. No hangover? Yeah, a little bit, but we're doing okay. How many do I want? 3 plus? Yeah, bigger family, yeah. Had your last child at age 41. Right. So, yeah. I'm not sure what we're arguing about at this point, but okay. The mail order route, I'm not sure how one would go about such a thing. What reputable mail order companies exist, if there are any, for mail order brides. But at this point, maybe that's the answer. What prison will he spend his sentence in? I'm not sure. It's up to the Department of Corrections. Okay, I think. Yeah, it looks like they're doing their press.
Statement. I know y'all don't want one. So, anybody got a question?
Do you think it was a mistake to put Alex Murdaugh on the stand?
No. Next.
Mr. Herb, again, why did you object to that juror being dismissed yesterday?
Why didn't I?
Why didn't you?
Well, for 2 reasons. One, she admitted she talked to other people about the case, but not specifically. But technically, I think the judge had leeway to excuse her, but she clearly, after we interviewed her back in chambers, in my mind, had not made up her mind. And I thought that was important.
Do you think she would have held your case?
I don't know. She didn't express an opinion to us. She said she was open. She hadn't made up her mind.
Mr. Harper, the defense has made a great deal of points about SLED and their handling the investigation. For your position in the Senate, do you feel there's an opportunity to address that from a legislative standpoint?
I think there were significant issues, but I won't be addressing that in the Senate unless it comes up in a bill. I'm not going to mix this role with my role as a senator. I would not do that.
Why do you think that the prosecutors didn't reach the death penalty in this case? And what do you make about the judge's comments after the verdict that he agreed with the jurors?
Go ahead.
Use death penalty.
What now?
Death penalty question.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Why didn't they say the death
What do you
penalty?
make of
Well, I'm somebody that's prosecuted and defended a bunch of death penalty cases. And clearly, you never do it in a circumstantial case. Because you're not 99 times out of 100, a jury's not going to sentence somebody to death without I saw him do it, he confessed, or great forensic evidence at the minimum. They had none of that here. Secondly, in a death penalty case, it gives us the ability to individually voir dire jurors, which would have been very helpful here. And the prosecution obviously didn't want that. So I don't disagree with, if I'd been prosecuting this case, I probably wouldn't have brought it, but based on, what we heard was presented to the Colleton County grand jury. by Detective Owen that Jim crossed, blood spatter that didn't exist, testimony about guns that was wrong. I mean, I can go through the litany with you. Going back to his question, I think SLED needs to do some self-examination on the forensic processing. They did not. I mean, one of the things we complained about was that Maggie's phone would have had all her GPS data on it if they processed it within 5 days. And they because they didn't, the GPS data got overridden. I mean, it was just one, which would have been helpful to Alec. It's fingerprints, footprints, and all kinds of forensic things that weren't done. So what was the other question about the judges?
What did you make about the judge's comments after the verdict that he agreed with it and thought it was the right conclusion?
He's entitled to his opinion.
Mr. Herculean, can you expect an appeal anytime soon?
10 days we'll be filing an appeal.
What do you believe the strongest grounds for an appeal are?
What'd you say?
What do you believe the strongest grounds for an appeal are?
But
You know, it was the admission of all the financial crime evidence, and that was offered up, you know, as evidence of motive, that because he was confronted about one financial transaction involving attorney's fees by the chief accountant of the law firm, that was being offered as motive for why he would go home and kill his wife and son, which we thought was illogical and ludicrous, and there really was no evidence linking one to the other, and we did not think it should come in. Not only did that come in, but every other financial misdeed that they could bring in over the last 10 or 15 years was allowed in, and we think that we strongly objected. We respect the judge's decision, but we believe that was an erroneous decision, and we believe that the judge was somewhat misled, because at the conclusion of the case, when Mr. Metters is up on his rebuttal argument in front of the jury, he says to the jury, "Oh, forget about all that motive evidence. We don't have to prove motive. We just have to prove malice," which is right. But why did they go to all the effort to prove motive when at the end they say, "You don't have to believe us on our motive theory"? But by then they had cast Alec as a despicable human being, and that was the reason they offered it in the first place. And we think the appellate courts will take a strong look at that. We feel like that is a very solid ground for an appeal, and we're going to pursue that.
Yeah, I think so too.
6 weeks, long trial. Would you guys do anything different in the last 6 weeks? How you handle
No.
anything in this trial?
No. I mean, look, once the judge, first of all, we believe if the judge was going to let that stuff in, it should have been limited to the Ferris case, which is what they were asking him about on Monday on the fee. Number two, Tinsley, the person that made the motion to compel to be heard on Thursday, Dawes Cook, Alex's lawyer, both agreed there wasn't going to be any storm or Armageddon or anything that was going to happen that Thursday. The judge might have issued an order, which months down the line might have posed a problem. So once they got that character information is he's a thief, he's a liar, then it dictated this jury had to think he was a despicable human being and not to be believed. So
Yep.
it was about character. It wasn't about motive.
Yep.
So as a result, our options were limited. Should he take the stand? Well, you know, we debated that. He always wanted to take the stand. But once that information was in, I mean, he had to take the stand to explain the kennel video, the lie, if you will. He had to, but he had no credibility. His credibility had been stripped away by the financial
Do you believe
misdeeds.
his claim today that he's innocent?
Yes.
How was Buster doing, and why did he choose not to speak at the sentencing?
We could have had Mother Teresa up there speaking on behalf of Alec at sentencing. I mean, he was getting a double life sentence. That was expected. I mean, this is Judge Newman. He's a very stringent punisher when it comes to crimes and sentences. I mean, that was never in dispute. And so for Buster to get up and speak on his dad's behalf would not have made a difference. And why do you want to put that kid through more trauma than anybody that you can imagine has ever been through?
Have his feelings about his dad changed at all since the trial?
What's that?
Have his feelings about his dad changed at all?
You know, I can't speak to Buster's feelings. I can tell you this. there was a lot of effort by the state to convince the family that Alec is the murderer. The family came to trial every day for 6 weeks, expecting to hear proof positive that he killed Maggie and Paul, something that they had not heard before. After 6 weeks of trial, they came away more convinced that he did not do this, and they steadfastly in his camp and support him. And
I feel that.
That's where they stand.
What's next for Alex?
Well, Alex will be leaving shortly to go to Columbia to R&E, it's called, where he'll be at the South Carolina Department of Corrections. He'll be evaluated. That's about a 30-day process, and then he'll be sent to wherever the correctional facility that they assign him to.
Did he ask for any special security measures for him?
No, I don't think. Alec was not optimistic that with all of the scrutiny and press and all of his bad acts being out in the public, in the world, media domain, that he could get, a jury to put out all the noise and just focus on the murder. And so coming in, he was somewhat pessimistic. He became optimistic as we got through the process. But I got to tell you, and all you reporters, you know the whole story, I'm sure. And if you're sitting on that jury, they heard everything that would be in an HBO documentary, a Netflix documentary about the Murdaugh family dynasty downfall, except the Stephen Smith matter. I mean, so we were hoping to get a jury to put all, that could ignore the noise, focus on the murder, and we ended up trying a case that they could have watched on Netflix.
Does your legal team have any regrets about the way that you guys performed in this trial? Do you feel like you did? Do you feel like you were outmatched in closing arguments?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, not outmatched. I mean, look, they won this case the day the judge bought into letting them put every piece of, stealing from kids who lost their mother, from somebody with pancreatic cancer, somebody that's a paraplegic. I mean,
thank you
all
to the
of that
1,000
2.5
of you who are
weeks,
watching.
by the time they got done with it, it didn't matter about final argument. It didn't matter about what we put up. They would never, ever, ever acquit him after that.
Last question, guys. Can you just
Last question.
what your grounds for appeal will be? You said it's going to be 10 days. Can you lay out your key arguments in that?
We'll file something not in 10 days, but we'll file a notice of intention to appeal. Then we've got 30 days, I think, to file a brief.
Yeah, so you file the notice within 10 days. You got to get a transcript.
Oh, that'll take a while.
That'll take months before they type up everything, and then we start briefing.
Are you all going to handle the appeal
Yes.
and argue it at the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court?
And the U.S. Supreme Court.
And the U.S. Supreme Court if necessary. That's correct.
What's the federal issue?
I'm not sure what U.S.
Doyle.
Supreme
Oh,
Court
there's a
issues
huge
you
federal
have, but
issue.
okay.
That's why I got so
There's a
animated.
federal issue, really?
The judge told me to sit down. Part of the trial is the state eliciting or asking questions of Alec about why he did not come forward and tell law enforcement where he was at the time of the kennel video. And that was after he was arrested. And there's U.S. Supreme Court cases are clear that post-arrest silence cannot be used against you. And that is a classic violation of the Fifth Amendment. And we feel strongly that if we lose at the state courts, we'll have success at the federal
Can you
courts.
tell us about the plea negotiations before trial?
No.
There were no plea negotiations.
There weren't any.
They never offered him anything.
If you think Alec is innocent, what effort are you making to find the real killer, or what effort is he making?
Not our job to find the real killer. If they had taken fingerprints, if they'd gotten footprints, if they hadn't destroyed, if they preserved Maggie's phone with her GPS, if they had not, they misrepresented to the grand jury that they had a shirt with his blood on it. If Owen had opened his email, he says he didn't get, would have told him a year before there was no human blood on that T-shirt. It was a comedy of errors in terms of forensics on this. So, do I have faith that they would find the real killer? No.
Is Alec concerned for Buster's safety? Is Alec?
We don't know. What? Last question. Last question.
Defendant on the stand, Alec Murdaugh.
Say that one more time.
Did you support putting Alec Murdaugh on the stand?
There was no choice.
Why?
because he had been made out to be a monster who stole from children and crippled people and crippled not. That's not a politically correct word.
Well, close enough.
I'm sorry, I'm an old guy. Crippled people who had just done horrible, despicable things, and he had to try to push back on that. And I mean, if he'd went that way without taking the stand, he was toast. Taking the stand, you know, could he pull it off? Apparently didn't.
In hindsight, do you regret not asking for a change of venue in this case?
Not really, because we checked. I mean, we did focus groups in this case in a county way far away from here. 8 of the 10 people on the 2 focus groups knew all about this case. I mean, there was nowhere you could go that you could find. We believe you could find a jury that didn't know, hadn't watched TV, hadn't read the stuff you write or the stuff the Twitter stuff. And by the way, one of the good pieces of information as this trial is over, Griffin can start tweeting again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
Great question.
All right, so we don't need to listen to any more of that. Then let's go and let me see if I can find the states thing from last night, because I haven't really watched that in full yet. And I want to watch this little thing from yesterday. So let me see if I can find that from yesterday. Let's see. How do we find this? This is going to be interesting. The sled chief spoke this morning. We could listen to that. Oh, okay. This looks like what I'm looking for. Okay. This looks like what I'm looking for from yesterday. Okay. So this is last night that we're about to watch, where the prosecution gave its little victory lap thoughts. So we'll watch this.
Wow, what a great day for the people of South Carolina. I want to thank every one of you for being here tonight. There's a lot of emotion here tonight at this courthouse. A lot of a year and a half, nearly 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears, it feels like. A lot of hard work from so many people. So if you will just bear with me, there's there's a lot of people I have to thank. But first, those of you who don't know, I'm Alan Wilson. I'm South Carolina's Attorney General, and I got the best staff of any Attorney General in the United States of America. I want to start by thanking our prosecution team. I want to tell you, I've been here for nearly 6 weeks with this team, living in a hotel, and it felt almost like being in a dorm environment in college. Late nights, cramming, studying, little sleep, away from our families, getting up early, getting here to the courthouse, working long hours, getting on each other's nerves at times. But it was all worth it. It was all worth it because we got to bring justice and be a voice for Maggie and Paul Murdaugh and bring justice for the people of South Carolina. I'd like to start real briefly by thanking our team. First, excuse me, I need to put my glasses on. Our chief prosecutor, I tell you, I appointed Creighton Waters to be the chief prosecutor of this case nearly a year and a half ago. And I want to say I'm pretty brilliant because I picked the right guy. And I want to say thank you to Creighton Waters. Creighton, you did a fantastic job. I don't think there's another attorney in the state of South Carolina that could have led this Herculean effort. But Creighton will be the first to tell you he didn't do it alone because he had a team of people. I want to first thank Don Zelinka, who is actually Creighton's boss. He is the Deputy Attorney General, been in the Attorney General's office for over 40 years, sitting here to my immediate left. Don Zelinka, thank you so much. John Metters, many of you got to see him do the closing argument today. John, thank you. You've been a phenomenal add to our team. I'm going to go quickly through the names, but as I read the names, please raise your hand. You know Creighton, you saw Don, and you see John. David Fernandez, John Conrad, Johnny James, Savannah Gowd, Ozzie Toledo. Shane Aceto.
Gowd apparently
Carly
is her last
Jewell.
name.
Carson
Co-pronouncing it
Burney.
Gowd.
Danielle Colon. And our victims advocate, Tricia Allen. I also want to say thank you to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Mark Keel assigned some amazing men and women. And when I say it was an agency-wide effort on behalf of SLED, I can't underscore that part enough. Every time I called Chief Keel, every time I reached out to the lead agents, every time Creighton was asking me, hey, General, we need something from SLED, we would reach out to SLED, and they were there. They busted their butts. I can't begin to list every agent, and some can't be listed
Savannah is
for
definitely
obvious
my
reasons.
type.
Some are standing up here tonight. I told them
Yeah.
I wasn't going to mention their names, but we
That
would
is
not
definitely
be
my
here
type.
if it wasn't for SLED. And I want to thank Mark Keel and his team and all of the men and women across the entire state law enforcement division for what they did to make tonight a possibility. Amen. I also want
She's
to
smart
thank
too, which is nice.
the FBI and the Secret Service, our federal partners. We had to utilize many of their assets and resources. We couldn't do all the things that we did without our federal partners. We had a lot of local partners. We had the Colleton County Sheriff's Department, Buddy Hill, Sheriff Hill and his team, providing the security. They did a phenomenal job, and they were there. They were the first responders the night on June 7, 2021, when Maggie and Paul were butchered brutally. They were the first responders, and they were the first ones to be there. The Charleston County Sheriff's Office, the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office were instrumental in supporting our investigative efforts. You all know Kenny Kinsey, our chief crime scene expert, was with the Orangeburg Sheriff's Office. I also want to thank the city of Walterboro. I think the mayor is here somewhere, and the police department. They provided security. Thank you. This whole community has embraced our entire team, and I cannot thank you enough. We've all been away from our families, 2 hours away from our families for the past 2 months. And it's this community that made us, we would walk into restaurants and people would come up and thank us. You know, you don't have any idea how good that makes people feel when they're under an incredible amount of stress, an incredible amount of scrutiny, and this community really embraced us. I want to thank the Colleton County Clerk of Court, Becky Hill, and her entire team and their staff. I don't know. I call her Becky Booth. That's her nickname. But Madam Clerk, wherever you are tonight. I'm sorry. That's my pet name for her. But I want to thank you, Madam Clerk, for you, the entire team, the bailiffs, the court security, the staff here. There was no role that was too small that they weren't willing to do for us. The security team here, it was a Herculean effort by everybody, and I can't thank enough people. I don't know if I mentioned the bailiffs, but I want to thank them. And there's another group of people who you don't know who they are, but that's the jurors. And not just the jurors, but the alternates, the ones who didn't even get to serve to the very end, but people who were taken away from their families. And I want to thank the families of our jurors who sat here every single day for what seemed like long amounts of tedious, monotonous information and evidence. Sometimes people didn't know what it meant. They didn't understand it.
I definitely had that problem, Mr. Attorney General. I have to be honest. I definitely had that problem with not knowing what the things meant. That was definitely an issue.
These nameless jurors whose identities have been protected, they may make their identities available to all of you at some point, but they sat there and they delivered justice tonight, and I want to thank them for their role in this process. Amen. You know, Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government except for every other kind. I kind of want to adopt that and say we may have the worst criminal justice system in the world, but it's better than every other kind that there is. And our criminal justice system worked tonight. It gave a voice to Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, who were brutally mowed down and murdered on the night of June 7th, 2021 by someone that they loved and someone that they trusted. And they couldn't be here to testify for themselves tonight. Their testimony came through the evidence and the information that was gathered by the men and women of the agencies I've just mentioned. It came from the testimony of the agents and the investigators and the attorneys and the folks in our staff who were able to get it to the court record. And so I want to say tonight, their voice was heard tonight, and justice was brought for them. We can't bring them back, but we can bring them justice.
Amen. Amen.
I started off my remarks by saying that it is a good day in South Carolina.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Today's verdict proves that no one, no matter who you are in society, is above the law.
Amen. Thank you, Jesus.
Not sure why we're doing a
A
call
lot of people
response
doubted
preaching
that this
thing going
process
on, but
would
okay.
work, and hopefully, for those who did doubt the process, hopefully we have instilled and put a little bit of faith back into you and your lives as you view this process as it unfolds. I'm proud of this team. I'm proud of the men and women standing behind me tonight, and there's been a lot of emotion. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I saw firsthand for the last 5 or 6 weeks the countless nights where you were up beyond midnight and you were getting up before dawn, not eating. I was watching Nancy Grace the other night and I heard her call Creighton pale and gaunt because Creighton wasn't eating and sleeping. He really wasn't, folks. I'm serious. You know, we would have to bring in kind bars and things to eat during breaks. But Creighton, Herculean effort, my friend. And I am truly honored to have you on our team. Thank you for being a great leader and a great chief prosecutor. And I would like to invite you to come up here and make some remarks for the folks here tonight.
Thanks, everybody. And I want to start by thanking this guy who's given me and all these folks behind us opportunities to do justice, which is what we want to do with our careers. It is very tough and demanding, but it's rewarding for moments like these. The general stole a lot of my lines, but I also want to thank the jurors for their long and arduous service. And we had no doubt that if we had a chance to present our case in a court of law, that they would see through the one last con that Alec Murdaugh was trying to pull. And they did, and we're so grateful for that. I get to lead the state grand jury section in the Attorney General's office. This particular case is not a state grand jury case. There are other indictments that are state grand jury. But the one thing about that is that I have an amazing team. And I want to be clear, this was a team effort. Y'all saw all of these folks behind me doing amazing work. And I can't be prouder of a team in my life. We called this our Super Bowl. And not because of the media attention, but just because of the effort that we knew that we would have to put into this. And we didn't really get to watch much of the Super Bowl that went on because when we arrived, I think it was winter and it feels like spring now. But every single member of this team, every single member of the state grand jury staff, what we do well is work together as a team in complex investigations, and who we work with is my partners at SLED. And I can't thank them enough as well because we're used to working on these complex cases and working together. And I'm not leaving out Sheriff Hill and the Colleton County Sheriff's Office and our federal partners in Orangeburg and Charleston Sheriff's Office and all the other agencies that have worked on this case. I also want to thank Ms. Becky, if she's still up there, because she's been amazing. The clerk staff has been amazing. The court staff has been amazing. The bailiffs have been amazing. And again, I also want to thank this community who really has embraced us and has been so great to us and made us able to survive this process that has been long and arduous. And I haven't been sleeping. I hadn't been. And I have been eating more than Kind bars every now and then. But, and I'm sure that's a nice plug for Kind. But anyway, it really has been a great process. We will have sentencing tomorrow. Obviously, we're not going to comment on sentencing because that's still pending. But justice was done today. It doesn't matter who your family is. It doesn't matter how much money you have or people think you have. It doesn't matter what you think, how prominent you are. If you do wrong, if you break the law, if you murder, then justice will be done in South Carolina. And I think South Carolina has shown to the nation and the world how a process can work and work well. Amen. Thank y'all.
And also, I want to thank Creighton. I told Creighton, I said, Creighton, I'm going to come down and I'm going to be just a staff attorney. I know I'm your boss. I'm your boss's boss's boss. But I said I'm going to come down and I'm going to help. And I said I'm going to follow instruction. And I hope I was true to my word. This past weekend, I was saying, what can I do to help? I said, I'm willing to take a witness if it'll help. He said, actually, it would. So he let
Really?
an old prosecutor
Is that how that went
dust
down?
off his cleats and get
Just
back in
said,
the
"No, I'm
game
willing to take a witness if it
to
help."
help the team out.
You didn't want to.
And,
I got to be the boss of the boss
Didn't-
for a while.
yeah,
You
don't
didn't,
get used to it.
I'm not used to it.
Was it more of a suggestion?
No, but in all seriousness, I'm proud of the decisions that I made in putting the people behind me and to the left and right of me in charge of this case, and I was honored to be part of this team. Just another member, just another worker bee in the trenches trying to bring justice to the people of this state, and to bring justice to the people who couldn't be here tonight because they were brutally murdered by someone they trusted. Now, with that being said, I know a lot of people want to talk to us. A lot of people want to talk to some of the attorneys and the support staff and the agents, investigators here tonight. Some of you want to talk to me and others. We're going to make ourselves available to you. But like Mr. Waters just said, tomorrow there's a sentencing hearing, and we don't want to get out in front of our skis. And plus, I'm starting to feel the rain come down. But I promise you, we're going to make ourselves available to talk to members of the media, to talk to all of you out there that have questions. We'll answer any questions that we ethically can. We hope you'll continue to be patient with us as we finish this process.
I have some
tomorrow.
questions as a member of the media.
Again, we're going to go back and get a good night's
Mostly for
sleep
Savannah.
tonight. But again, thank you. I'm going to also, one last group that we didn't thank, the media. You all, I know a lot of people in this polarizing world we live in, a lot of people take shots at the media, but the media was incredibly respectful. You were so good, not just to us, but listen, to the families of the victims, okay? I know this is an awkward situation, but you protected the identities of people, and you protected the process, and I want to thank you for your part in this and telling the stories, educating the public on what's going on out there. So now I'm going to stop speaking as an attorney general, and I'm going to close as a father and as a husband to say that when you go home tonight, hug your loved ones, hug your spouse, hug your children, because this case reminds us of anything that you can't take for granted that people in your family are always going to be there. And right now, when I get home tomorrow, I'm going to hug mine, and I hope you hug yours. But thank you again. Thank you for your prayers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your prayers. You came and prayed for me. I see a lot of people come up and say we're praying for you. We appreciate your prayers. Thank you all so much. And this is going to conclude this press conference. We look forward to talking to all of you tomorrow. Thank you.
Well, the Attorney General just told me that they're making the staff available. So if anyone has any contact information for Savannah, let me know. 1,000 people watching this channel, surely, right? Someone's got to know somebody who knows somebody. South Carolina is a beautiful state. I'll say this: I like South Carolina. I love South Carolina, and I do love the culture of South Carolina. It's a beautiful state. I lived there for 20 years. I grew up in Columbia, the state capital, and of course went to school at Clemson. Go Tigers! And I've lived in Beaufort for a little while as well. So I've lived in basically all the parts of the state. And it is a beautiful, lovely state with beautiful, lovely people, and a culture that is very warming to my heart. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. So, for those of you who are saying I wouldn't go to South Carolina, well, this in a state that I have fond memories of. You lived in Columbia, and it's a dump. There are definitely parts of Columbia, but I mean it's true of most major cities. But if you don't like major cities, no problem, right? Greenville in particular has really come into its own, even especially since I graduated. Clemson is basically outside of Greenville. It's 45 minutes away from Greenville. So you go to Greenville all the time when you're in Clemson, and it has really come onto its own as a nice, growing tech, artistic hub of the state. Really, really cool. So, yeah. Charleston has its appeals too. Rainbow Row, the streets, the architecture, the history. Yeah. So there's a lot to like about this state. And I'm willing to move back there. And my parents would be happy because they live there, so that'd be good. They'd see me a lot more often. So, if me and Savannah really hit it off, then I'll get my license in South Carolina. I already have my uniform bar exam results, so I can apply to South Carolina based on those scores for whatever it is. I'd have to double check how long the time period is, but it's at least 2 years, and it might be a little longer than that. And get my South Carolina licensure and go from there. Yeah. Greenville has better restaurants than Columbia, starting to compete with Charleston. I feel that. Do you think the AG will come out on Fox saying he locked up another Dem? Lol. I don't think about that, no. Traffic in Greenville's gone insane. Or Charleston, the traffic's gone insane. Do I think the appeal will be successful? I have my doubts about the federal issue that he said. I was like, I don't know, not sure about that one with the federal issue, because I think that there is a distinguishment. There is a distinguish from the federal case law about the right, commenting on the right to remain silent, because I don't think that's quite exactly what was going on. And the judge's rationale for distinguishing seemed correct. So I'm not so sure about the federal appeal idea. Well, let's go to the U.S. Supreme Court. I don't see that happening. But the state Supreme Court, yeah, maybe. 1% of appeals are successful? Yeah, that's about right. You'll always remember clock, seal, and chandelier. Yeah, I'm not sure how things worked out between those lovebirds. Have I ever been to Corpus Christi? I'm not sure if I've ever been to Corpus Christi. If I have, it's been a long time. Who's Savannah? The girl prosecutor with the long black hair, the thin prosecutor, thin young prosecutor with the black hair. Savannah. Yeah, that's Savannah. Savannah Good. Goude. That's her name. Assistant Attorney General since 2018. Assistant Solicitor 2016 to 2018. Contract Attorney for Motley Rice 2015. Law Clerk, Ninth Circuit Solicitor's Office. Paralegal, Corn Firm. Education, Charleston School of Law, which doesn't exist anymore. And University of South Carolina. She went to Charleston School of Law. That's cool. Was it still running? I was under the impression they folded. Oh, so they were discredited. They were discredited and then became accredited again. Okay, so they are still running around. Okay, I thought the school had folded completely. Yeah, the Charleston School of Law only has existed since 2003. So that's her background. Smart girl. Yeah, graduate of University of South Carolina. So that's all right. We can make that work. We can make that work. Show the ABC interview with the jury? Sure, why not? Let's see if I can find it. Murdaugh juror review. Let's see. Okay. No.
Alec Murdaugh found guilty on all counts. The once prominent attorney.
Okay, let's see what we got. All right.
Disgraced attorney then taken out of the courtroom. Now, in an ABC News exclusive, juror Craig Moyer breaking his silence, revealing how the jury came to their decision.
When you first got in the room, you took a vote?
It was 2 not guilty, 1 not sure, and 9 guilty.
What was your vote?
Guilty.
From the start?
Yes.
Moyer says it didn't take long to get everyone on the same page.
We started deliberating, going through the evidence. Everybody was pretty much talking, and about 45 minutes later, after all our deliberating, we figured it out.
So it took basically 45 minutes for you guys to come to a decision?
Probably about 45, maybe an hour.
That's really fast.
Yeah, the evidence was clear.
He says it was this piece of video featuring Alec's voice at the crime scene moments before the murders that convinced him.
You hear his voice clearly, and everybody else could too.
Alec finally admitting it was him for the first time a year and a half after the murders.
When he said it was him, were you surprised?
I was very surprised.
Why?
That was his only savior right there.
For some people, it's so hard to understand how a husband, especially a father, would kill their own son. What made you so sure that he had?
His responses, how quick he was with the defense, and his lies, steady lies.
Did you feel like he was a liar?
A good liar, but not good enough.
Moyer also not convinced by moments like this. Alec appearing emotional on the stand.
What did you think when Alec Murdaugh took the stand?
I didn't think much of him.
Really?
Really. I didn't see any true remorse or any compassion or anything.
Even though he cried a lot on the stand.
He never cried.
He never cried. What do you mean by that?
All he did was blow snot.
Did you not see tears?
No tears.
How did you know he wasn't crying?
Because I saw his eyes. I was this close to him.
Moyer says he also didn't buy the defense's argument that Alec didn't have enough time to commit the crime and create an alibi.
The defense said there's no way he could have done all these things, clean everything up, get it all ready, and then go to his mom's and come back in that short amount of time.
I think there's just enough time.
All those factors leading the jury
Not so sure about that one, but okay.
That guilty verdict.
If you really look at everything, it's all plain and clear.
And the judge.
Well, apparently that's all there is to that. So that's your jurors. That's your jurors for you, but that's reality. So that's reality. Creighton next on ABC. Let me see if I can find it. What his chances on appeal look like? I mean, you always have to bet against it, but I think he's got some possibilities that are better than most. Creighton ABC. I can't find it. Yeah, I can't find it. Sorry. So I guess we won't do that one. Okay. Well, I guess that will be the end of that for us today. So just a kind reminder, if you like such things, I did a nice little video dealing with Supreme Court tax stuff that I think you guys might like. So you should check that out. And yeah. So it's right after the, I can't find it. I'm sorry. So I'm going to sign off. If you like this content, please remember to do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and all the rest of it. I hope you all have a great day. I've been on Civil Law. Until later, my friends, hope all's well. Cheers and goodbye.